Please welcome Karen Freeman Wilson, Mayor of Gary, Indiana, and President of National League of Cities, Ron Nierenberg, Mayor of San Antonio, Texas, and Clarence Anthony, CEO and Executive Director, National League of Cities.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. You guys have had an amazing day, and you are lucky that you're going to hear from two amazing leaders from throughout America. The first thing I'll tell you is at my office, I'm used to walk-on music, maybe from Hamilton or something that pumps the crowd up, but I don't have that, so I got two great mayors who's going to do that. First, we have Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, who is mayor of Gary, Indiana, about 45 minutes outside of Chicago, leading an amazing city. And then right next to me, we have Mayor Nierenberg from San Antonio. 1.5 million folks and one of the fastest growing cities in America. So it's going to be great to hear from both of our leaders here and share with you how they are leading during this time and wanting a partnership from the federal level. So today is about a conversation. Today is about getting more commitment from and partnership with the business community as well as the elected officials throughout America. So Mayor Freeman Wilson, you're president of National League of Cities. Thank you for that. But can you tell us what your city is facing when it comes to infrastructure, and how would a stronger partnership with the federal government help your city?
Well, this is, first and foremost, I want to thank the U.S. Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity to join what is a crucial conversation. And when you talk about what's happening in Gary around infrastructure, it's an important time for us. We have just completed a 1,900 foot extension of our runway at our airport. And so now we have 8,900 feet, making it really prime for cargo, even though it's a smaller airport. But in addition to that, we are on the verge of developing an inland port that would be a complement to that airport, but would also play on the fact that we have 3 Class 1 railways that move through an area called Buffington Harbor, that we have 4 interstate highways that are right near there, and we have barge traffic that is active because of the presence of U.S. Steel. And so there's a real opportunity in Gary to grow our infrastructure both through the inland port and through the airport. And the thing about our airport is that we've done a public-private partnership there. And so we understand the importance of partnering with local business and as well as with a national entity that does airports. We have also seen investment from both the federal and state government, and we think that there is an opportunity to do the same thing with the inland port.
Thank you. Mayor Nierenberg, you know, again, I introduced you by saying it's one of the fastest growing,
the fastest,
the fastest growing city in America. You know, with that, you have to keep up with all the infrastructure needs of your community. How have you done that, and what obstacles have you had in terms of achieving those priorities in transportation and other infrastructure?
Well, thank you, Clarence, and thank you also to the U.S. Chamber for being great partners for cities throughout the United States. San Antonio is a 300-year-old city, which for Texas standards is pretty old. We're also a sprawling city, 500 square miles. In addition to that, we are the fastest growing city in the country. I think about 150 people per day in our MSA are moving or are born in our community. So we have major infrastructure challenges, and they go across the spectrum. Water infrastructure, roadway infrastructure, air infrastructure, you name it, we are working on it. What we've done over the past is San Antonio has had an extraordinary track record of proactive investment. Every 5 years we put a bond package in front of voters, not requiring a tax increase, but getting an approval of a list of projects. Roughly in about $850 million was the bond program that was passed by voters in 2017. In addition to that, we've relied on very good financial management, gold standard financial management and bond ratings to help us keep up with the capital infrastructure program annually. Over $1.5 billion this year. So we've been doing our work proactively throughout our community over the last 20 years to keep up with the kind of growth that we're experiencing, but we know it's not enough. We require partnership at the state level and at the federal level, particularly as it relates to roadway and highway infrastructure. One of the things that we're focusing on right now is the fact that San Antonio, as is typical for a large Texas city, is behind the curve in terms of multimodal transportation. So one of the things I campaigned on was instituting modern transportation reform for the city of San Antonio. We still have gotten by with mainly single occupancy vehicle as the only transportation game in town. But those days are quickly ending as the community densifies, the business community is great, people are moving into San Antonio. We need options to keep people moving if we're going to keep our economy moving.
One of the things that's obvious probably to this audience is, yes, we need a federal partner, and we need the administration as well as Congress to step up. But it seems like you guys are doing it. What can federal leaders learn from local leaders? Both of you, what can they learn from city leaders?
I think that you're right. If you think about mayors, we see folks every day. We're in the grocery stores, we're in the mosque and synagogues and churches. We see our folks and they don't want to hear, well, I can't get the council to do this or I can't get someone else to do that. So we have to get it done. And so as we think about how to get it done, it's always about partnerships, whether it is a partnership at the local level with county government or a partnership at the state level with the federal government or with private partners. And so I think that's the message that we can take and that we bring to Washington, the ability, the imperative, quite frankly, of getting it done, and the fact that there's not just one way to accomplish something. There are multiple ways to get things done. And I think that to the extent that there are over 19,000 cities that we represent at the National League of Cities, you will find 19,000 ways to accomplish something. But the bottom line is that it must be accomplished.
Yeah, and I think that sums it up perfectly. Local communities, city governments, county governments get the job done because we have to. We don't have the luxury of partisan gridlock at the local level because constituents depend on the roads getting paved. They depend on police getting their paychecks and hitting the beat. They depend on fire services and library services staying open. We don't have the luxury of not delivering for our local communities. So we use every tool at our disposal to take care of infrastructure, to maintain infrastructure, to build infrastructure when it's necessary.
So speaking of a federal partnership, what does that look like? I mean, you guys have talked about some tools you're using, bond issues, P3s. What are some of the things that you think the federal government can help you lead and other mayors from cities, towns, and villages all over America? What do you think they can do?
Well, certainly there are some federal programs that have been extremely helpful. The BUILD program and its predecessor have been helpful, especially when you're looking at mass transit, when you're looking at larger infrastructure projects. We've actually used that in our commuter rail between Chicago and Northwest Indiana. But in addition to that, the opportunity zones present a real opportunity for us to see local investment, but there also has to be a framework as you look at workforce investment and workforce development, as you look at the disaster recovery. I think those are areas where the federal government is distinctly poised to lead in and allow us to tailor the programs to the needs of our cities and our citizens.
And I would agree with everything that Karen just said. In addition to that, though, what we've seen, the greatest help, beyond all the federal programs that are available, is the cost of capital. Like it or not, the cities in urban areas in the United States are growing so quickly that we need financing, and to be able to finance projects of that magnitude, we need the cost of capital to be as low as possible. So programs like WRDA, like the FAST Act, that provide low-cost financing for major infrastructure projects are critically important. And then, of course, flexibility in terms of the federal grants that are available. One of the big programs that has been helpful to us over the last decade is CDBG, Community Development Block Grants, Choice and Hope. These programs that are helping us cope with the pending housing crisis that's happening all across our cities.
So all of us saw the Super Bowl Sunday night. This is not a planned question, guys, so you may as well get ready. The Patriots won again, right? And everybody's saying it's the right time and it's great for Brady and all of that. This is a stretch, but I'm going to wind this into this question. Why is it the right time for an infrastructure bill? Did y'all get that? I knew it was a stretch. I had to keep you guys into this. Now, so why is it the right time for it? I mean, we've been talking about it 2-3 years now. What makes this the right time to make this happen?
Clarence, I think precisely what you said. We've been talking about it. That was the platform, the presidential platform, or one of the hallmarks of the presidential platform. We're talking about it at the state level. Indiana just saw an unprecedented investment in road infrastructure 2 years ago. We're talking about it at the local level, whether you're talking about airport development, whether you're talking about water infrastructure, which is so important to legacy cities like mine, as we look at lead contamination and issues like that. And so our message is simply, it's time to stop talking about it, and it's time to start doing something about it. And to the extent that we're all aligned at every level of government, but also in the private sector, with the need to invest in infrastructure so that we can get people to work, so that we can make our cities prosper, then I think this is prime for us all to come together on.
Infrastructure creates jobs. Infrastructure is nonpartisan. Infrastructure keeps America competitive. All of the things that we've been talking about, the polarization of our political environment, can be addressed by just getting to work. And America gets to work when it invests in its infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I want to get the audience ready. We're going to take 2 questions out of the audience because I do think it's important as we have this conversation to recognize that real success is going to happen when the chamber, the business community, and local government leaders, whether it is in San Antonio or Gary, insist. So I want to see what questions that you may have for this audience. Both of you talked about jobs, and what does the infrastructure bill do for jobs in your local community or nationally? How do you see this bill playing a role in workforce?
Well, to the extent that there is an opportunity to enhance workforce development investment, particularly when you look at the involvement in local unions, operating engineers, heavy equipment operators, when you look at training of young people who may not have necessarily graduated from high school and or gone to college, the opportunity for technical college and career and technical training is huge as a result of this bill. And to get that in cities with high unemployment, like ours, or even cities with low unemployment. What we're beginning to recognize now as a country is that college is not affordable or even desirable for everyone. You know, we used to say, you graduate, you go to college. That's not the message that we have to give our kids now, but we need to give them a viable opportunity, not just to make a living, but to create a life in their communities, in our communities.
As it relates to transportation, we have a saying in San Antonio that you can't build your way out of it. But the truth of the matter is we can't build the same things we've been building before.
Precisely.
We also have another saying that's every job is a STEM job, science, technology, engineering, and math. That's the future of the United States to remain competitive in the world. But we do well when we innovate, and so the innovation also needs to happen within the infrastructure space. And so when we invest, we create jobs that we're trying to bring to the United States. We're trying to have our young people go to school and build a smarter environment. So I think that, you know, the direction that we're moving in as communities, just to be able to cope with the challenges of growth and infrastructure decay, are leading into the direction of workforce development.
So tonight there's this major speech called the State of the Union. And what are you looking to hear from the president as it relates to his message and infrastructure?
I'm certainly looking to hear a clear commitment to present Congress with a comprehensive infrastructure package, to say that we are 100% behind it, to talk about the opportunities for the federal agencies to even invest early on without necessarily passing legislation, because there's certainly an opportunity to see that and to collaborate together and with cities and towns and villages all over this country. So that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'll be in the gallery tonight, and I hope that the two most spoken words tonight are investment and infrastructure. And the truth of the matter is, if we're going to do either or both, we also have to have partnerships. So I do hope that there's a good portion of the speech tonight that goes into depth about what kind of investment America needs. And those signals are coming from every city in the country: housing, transportation, water, human infrastructure, all these things that we have been clamoring for a long time, that's going to require Congress and the administration to get on the same page and finally make the significant investment that we've been needing.
Okay. I have a few more questions, but I wanted to find out if anyone had a compelling question in this audience that you would like to ask the mayor. Yes, sir, in front.
I'd like to ask Mayor Nierenberg, I think I heard you say that every 5 years you do a bond issue in San Antonio, and I think, or at least you implied, it's for infrastructure purposes. And you said you do that and you don't raise taxes. So how do you service and amortize those bonds?
Yes, great question. So we have a 6-year capital improvement program within the city, and we invest in our infrastructure on an ongoing basis. But we build capacity in the interim years, and we hold that capacity for major GO bond issuances that have the community come together, and hundreds of people coming together on different committees: transportation, parks, and open space. Several different propositions that are then put in front of voters, so we know what their priorities are. It gets all of the council members and their districts involved with actual planning of projects. But when we have those issuances, we know for certain that it's the community that's driving the priorities. So we also have what I would say best in class. We're the only major city in the country that has had all 3 credit rating agencies have given us AAA bond ratings. So we build capacity, we manage our finances very well.
One more question. Yes, sir.
So with the digitization of the society and growing bigger and bigger rate, what challenges do your cities face in adopting smart spaces and all the new interconnected opportunities that we're creating in the society?
I think probably one of the biggest challenges is that you have very old communities that have to now adapt to the smart city dynamic and smart city infrastructure. And so there are some aspects of the older cities in terms of the fiber and other things that will adapt, but in terms of how the space is laid out, how the size is, where people gravitate towards in the community, that's more of a challenge. And so you really have to call on the community to rethink what your space looks like. As an example, we have 57 square miles in the city of Gary that was built for more than 200,000 people. We don't need that number of miles anymore. And so what is it that we can do to reduce our footprint while at the same time servicing our citizens better? The great thing is that technology is there to help us make those decisions. And I think what San Antonio is doing and what we're doing in terms of having citizens involved in making those decisions will really be important to the success of the cities as they reconfigure themselves.
And our last question, this young guy right here, his hand up, sir.
Yes, when it comes to Rebellion City, how the infrastructure work with transportation, drinking water, aviation, parks and recreation, and schools?
That's the whole kit and caboodle, isn't it?
That's it. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard to describe where one section of the infrastructure need begins and where one ends, or when one ends and one begins. Our major needs are transportation, housing, and human infrastructure. And so we've been investing in those areas there, those areas in particular, but our priorities are driven by a community-led comprehensive plan. About 4 years ago, I chaired an effort called SA Tomorrow, which takes our growth dynamic and looks at the needs over the long term. And so we have laid out, with the community's help, 11 different areas where we're making strategic investments in all those areas that you just mentioned, and we're driven by those priorities and how we make those investments.
Well, let me first of all just say thanks to the U.S. Chamber for this convening. It is our opportunity today to talk about a real partnership between national city leaders and national business leaders. Tonight, communities all over America will be tuning in to the State of the Union, having watched parties in their neighborhoods, chambers. Clearly, local leaders will be tuning in as well. You know, about a month ago, I got a chance to see the production of Hamilton, and there was one song in there that just says it all. We can't throw away our shot. This is our opportunity this time to get an infrastructure bill and not just have conversation about it. And let me tell you, the National League of Cities has welcomed the opportunity to work with the U.S. Chamber. Our national leaders are ready, and I know you are as well. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you.
Clarence, I want to thank you. I want to thank Mayor Nierenberg, Mayor Wilson. The Chamber truly appreciates our partnership with the League of Cities, and thank you for coming and addressing our folks. We want to continue this partnership, get the federal government to do what you guys have been doing, and get an infrastructure bill done this year. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
We're going to thank you. We're wrapping up our morning session. We're going to reset the room, so if you could exit and head to the briefing center, please come back at 12:05, and we'll begin our afternoon session at 12:05. Thank you.